Let's go. Dominic, correct. Give me that beat. It's the greatest intro song in all of podcasting. Well, it's tied for first with the Unregistered intro music. You're right. I love it. Every week I get stoked when I listen to that, and I'm totally fired up to talk to my black friend Michael. How's things in the ghetto?
Good. It's funny. It's funny you called me black.
Why? Why is it funny? I gotta understand. Like, what?
Yeah.
Yes. What? Mm-hmm.
I did.
You play the drum. You play drums. You have.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Like, okay. What? Sorry.
I did a gig in a dark nightclub once after this haircut, and like.
After this haircut. Oh shit.
Yeah.
This is gonna be a good story then.
Wait a minute. You're white. I got that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I was gonna say you also have the Sean King hairdo now.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
It's very convenient. It's very useful. That could be very kinky hair. We don't know if it's only a millimeter long.
Could be.
It could be. Could well be. You could be like Malcolm X. Malcolm X was like my color, and he had red hair. Was Malcolm X black? He had far more white ancestors than black ancestors, like far more. But was he black? Yeah, I think so. So
yeah, I'm going to volunteer for the NAACP and pretend to not know my dad.
So for those who don't know, we have an awesome new producer, I guess, on the show, who is Matt, who is doing the chapter titles for us. Because I realized many months ago, like when Gaza started this, no, actually, because we were talking about Ukraine too a lot, that our audience is what? Diverse ideologically or in terms of interest. So like a bunch of our audience is interested in geopolitics. And so you now can just go click to the section on geopolitics. You don't have to listen to us talk about black people. Some of our audience is interested in cultural stuff, and and they're down for all, and maybe not so much about like NATO and the history of the U.S. empire. So anyway, we have that. Thank you, Matt. He's doing an amazing job. You can look. I think he did the last 3 episodes, so you can check it out for the last 3 episodes. In fact, I recommend that you do, because when I saw his chapter headings for all of our talking points, it was remarkable how much shit we talk about, bro. It's like, what the hell? We know a lot of shit, turns out. But, broad interests. So, we talk about comedians from the 1950s, and then we talk about Tony Blinken's recent press conference, and then we, it's a good show. All right, so we got that. Michael, it said both, but the thing to remember, this is a BIPOC owned show, BIPOC managed. And so give us more money.
Yeah. I'm biracial.
It's fucking just bi. It's just
German,
everything.
German and Italian.
I fuck with everything, so I'm bi like everything. It doesn't, Yes, very broad mind here, eclectic. All right, let's stop freaking out the geopolitics people. So we got the DNC, Democratic National Convention in Chicago, Illinois, right now at the United Center, Michael Jordan's home, house, the house that Michael Jordan built. And I'm going to say that the skill level exhibited by the Democrats at their convention in the United Center is less than the skill demonstrated by Michael Jordan in that very same building. It's remarkable. All major party conventions have been remarkable in my lifetime that I've seen in their vapidity, vacuity, emptiness, stupidity, rampant, of course, propagandizing. This is all to be expected. It's just that this year it's reached new levels wherein the candidate, who will be confirmed in minutes, I think, as we're speaking here, I guess, the candidate and her campaign and the party as a whole and all Democrats and liberals on Twitter are promising, and I love this, I really do. They're promising happiness, man. And in fact, since she began her campaign and promised joy, I have felt a little lighter, in my step. I just woof, like the sky's a little bit bluer and I'm feeling better. And I thought, why am I feeling good these days? Did I get that Xanax re-up or no? It's Kamala Camel Toe Harris, Kamala Harris, my homie from Berkeley, said that she's going to bring joy. And the nice thing is, and this is where she's true, and I really mean this. If you talk about politics, all you're doing is reducing joy in the world. The more you talk about actual politics and policy, the less joy there is. It's a horrific business. I hate that we're in it. You and I are very good people, and we shouldn't be doing this. We should be, I think, sports journalists. I think we should be covering like teams, local beats and cities. Football season starts in 2 days. We need to be talking about only that, because the people I've noticed who are sports journalists are happy. It's weird. They're happy. They joke. They laugh. They're all friends. They say nice things about each other. But in politics is about fighting. Politics is, one very good definition is, politics is the relations of power, or it is power relations. That's what politics is. And therefore it's all about fighting.
Yeah, it's what you do before you go to war, basically. Like it's war, like yeah.
What did Clausewitz say? War is politics by other means. It's fighting. And, I happen to be good, and you happen to be especially good at fighting verbally, making arguments, counter arguments, poking holes in people's, we're talented at that shit. And so I think that's probably why you and I chose this. And you're in a much better position than I am, because I get, of course, silly and emotional about things. You being an autistic robot, you don't care so much about like dead children and shit, but I do. So like that makes it even worse. And stupid. I'm never going to meet a kid from Gaza. Ever. I'm never going to meet most of the people we talk about. Yet, I let them ruin my life. I let them make me unhappy. It's just the most despicable profession. It's just, not morally, just in terms of what it does to one's psyche. It's awful. Sure, there are moments of sadistic joy when you best your opponents or make fun of them, but that's all it is. It's a little fleeting moment of sadistic pleasure. There's no lasting joy. And so Kamala, and this is brilliant, think about this, by removing politics from politics, we're feeling better. I feel good. When I listen to a Tim Walz speech and he's talking about being a teacher and a football coach, and he's on stage like this and his retarded son is crying, I'm like, hell yeah. And I kind of mean it. Like, I know, by the way, I know these people. I don't mean personally, but like, as I said, I literally grew up in Kamala's neighborhood at the exact same time. And I've known zillions of Minnesota liberals and lefties a lot. I went to college in the Midwest. They're cool. I mean, they're not cool. They're nice. Tim Walz is a nice guy. So I'm feeling good. Kamala, I do maintain, even though my judgment on this gets clouded by her despicableness, she is an attractive woman. And so if she doesn't talk about politics and she's an attractive woman physically, that's who I date. So we're good. I go for the attractive apolitical women. I can't imagine dating a non. So that's my current fantasy, is that Kamala is just my future girlfriend, who I will propose to in November, and then we will be married in January. And from then on, I will experience joy because she won't talk about politics.
Mm-hmm.
She's cute and she won't talk about politics. Is there a better woman? I'm just saying, think about it. I think Kamala's, presenting us with an offer that maybe we shouldn't refuse. Back to you.
This is a deliberate rebranding of her cackle, of her famous cackle, where every time, not unlike Tucker Carlson's cackle, but still a cackle every time she appears in public, where like she tells a joke and nobody laughs, and then she cackles to herself as an expression of joy and not of complete incompetence and inability to connect with a human being. But also, this has been coming up. It appears that her joy comes from her love of alcohol, that she is quite obviously an alcoholic. Like,
wait a minute.
Anybody who knows an alcoholic and observes Kamala Harris's behavior knows that this is an alcoholic.
All right. Okay. As someone who knows a whole lot about alcoholism from every conceivable angle, I know everything. I know when the term and the concept was invented, and I wrote about it. And every man in my family has been an alcoholic. Some might say I am or have been. I've studied it. I know this shit. Tell me. I'm not convinced.
Okay.
Tell me.
I have two clips. One called Kamala Drunk and one called Kamala Drunk 2. Here is Kamala Drunk 1.
Never let anyone take your joy from you. I call myself a joyful warrior. Right? Never let anyone take your joy from you. You do what you gotta do. And isn't that a wonderful way to live? To know you have purpose.
Okay, wait a second. Okay. Let's look at the backdrop. She was in the Philippines. She was at the U.S. Embassy in the Philippines. Crucial. I have argued it is the most crucial strategic partner of the United States of America. If they don't control the Philippines, who controls the Pacific? Not the U.S. And that's why the U.S. jumped all over the Philippines. And that's why the most vicious wars in the World War II were fought over control of the Philippines. And that's why the United States had the biggest bases in history in the Philippines, Subic Bay and Clark. And that's why they just reopened Subic Bay and Clark, because they're about to go to war with China.
And
so
that's
she's
why
there.
She was 6 cocktails deep in front before an important diplomatic mission.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Because she's like, oh shit, I think this is really important. I don't know a fucking thing.
Yeah.
I don't know anything. Every time she talks about actual issues, which is like once a month or so, I really would bet on this. And I mean this. This is something that I'm serious about. I think Biden actually does know. Well, he does about foreign policy. He did that last speech about foreign policy a month ago or so. Or no, it was the debate. Right. It was in the debate, the disastrous debate. Toward the end, though, he kind of like spieled off a lot of like pretty deep facts, like information that only pretty knowledgeable people have. This bitch knows nothing. And I'm serious. I really don't think she knows anything past the subheads of any issue. Like any issue. Have you ever heard her present an argument?
Not...
I mean, have you ever heard her present a point with more than one specific fact?
I've heard her speculate that her policies will work, and I've seen her drag out several visual aids and repeat a 3-word slogan several times with deep emotional browbeating, but I haven't heard her like say this will lead to this because of this. I've never seen like 2 layers of thinking in her arguments ever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. It's all surface.
Mm-hmm.
It is, guys. I've been watching this woman for a long time because she's from right here, and she was my boss. I mean, meaning the top cop in the city, in the San Francisco, and then whatever, senator. And I've never heard her say anything substantive at all about a specific political issue. Not ever. I mean, this is really something, because Joe Biden, in the depths of dementia, was rocking facts about Ukraine and NATO and the Middle East. And, you know, dude's been around. He was the chair of the Foreign Relations Committee in the Senate for decades, I think, a long time. So he had, you know, and this is Joe Biden, who everyone agrees on the earth is not there cognitively. He knows way more. She doesn't. What is this? So did she drink? Does she drink? Did she drink? Does she drink when she knows she has an important speech to give?
This is Michael Malice has laid this out before, that she is America's wine mom, wine aunt, that she exhibits all three stages of alcoholism, or of the wine mom. What is it? The giggly laugh, and then like the disappointed, and then like the crash, like the stern talking to. Like, she goes through all the phases. This is Kamala drunk clip 2.
Okay, let's do it.
This is back home in Washington, D.C. Anybody who has ever worked in Washington, D.C. knows that everybody who works there is an alcoholic. They all bond over alcohols. It's a lot like grad students. Like, that's just how they survive their miserable existence.
You know, the other thing about them, they're also gay.
Yes. Yeah.
No, it's true. I mean, they're not all, but there's a massive gay subculture in DC. In particular on Capitol Hill. There's a bunch of staffers fucking each other. Okay, go.
Yeah.
I'm pointing to the direction of what I believe is the Capitol. And what needs to happen in terms of people who otherwise have evidenced themselves having a feckless quality, to show some courage, to reject the false notion that suggests you're either in favor of the Second Amendment or you want to take everyone's guns away, when in fact it's just reasonable. I support the Second Amendment, but it's reasonable to say we need an assault weapons ban. It's reasonable to say we need universal background checks, that we need red flag laws. It's reasonable to say that if you want to deal with violence in the community, you also got to understand it's not only about mass shooting situations, which are horrific, and it's about everyday gun violence.
I hadn't seen that one. Okay, she's drunk.
Yeah.
In that one. And I mean this, I think it's a 50-50. I think it's 50. No, listen, Weimer. It's a 50% chance that she's just straight drunk, because yes, okay, got it. 50% chance that when people think she's drunk, she's actually doing something specific. Do you know what it is? She's might
pretending to be black. Yeah.
Exactly. And she gets caught in between.
Yeah.
She gets caught in between. She gets caught in between who she really is and the blackness that she's adopted since she went to Howard as an 18-year-old. I think she gets stuck in it. She's like, wait, am I supposed to talk like real black, or am I just supposed to talk like a little black like Obama did?
Yeah.
Is it supposed to be like high black, like up in the fucking church, like down in Alabama, like motherfucker? Or is it just like every once in a while you have like a little inflection like Obama did? And she gets in there. She gets in the Obama zone, and she gets confused because he invented it. Well, she's just the little rookie playing this, and she doesn't know where she is. Is she black? Am I black or white right now? Am I black or white, or am I Indian? Can't even remember. Sorry.
Yeah, she.
That's what it is, though.
It is. It probably is.
Wait, so she's not drunk? She's just race confused.
No, she's both. She's both. She is. Like,
she drinks to deal with her race confusion.
yes, she drinks, and then on top of that, she's racially confused as to how she has to present herself that day.
Especially when she has to talk about foreign policy.
Yeah.
Am I black or white? And I got to talk about the Philippines. Uh-oh.
Mhm.
Where's that Cabernet? Or does she? But here's the thing, though. What's her drink of choice? This proves that she's not black.
Yeah, it's wine.
It's wine.
Yeah, she's a wine. Yeah.
Where's the Hennessy? Anyway.
It's if you been to the CVS, it's behind glass now.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
They can't get to it anymore.
Oh.
Okay. We are now banned from everywhere. Nice knowing you.
Yeah. Okay. This is important.
Bring it back.
Yeah. You mentioned like
Oddly, we're gaining audience though. I see the number going up. I don't know. What does this mean?
yeah.
No,
So
seriously, the fact
yeah.
that CVS has put all the Hennessy that presents
Yeah.
a problem in certain parts of this country. I'm just
You
saying.
can still shoplift Jack Daniels if you want. It's still there. You can shoplift Jack Daniels all day.
That's the white man's drink.
Yeah.
That's my favorite.
Mhm.
Okay.
So
let's can you stop with the fucking racist shit for a second? Okay. And the joking and all that. Can we just be serious about the news? Thank you.
The pretending to be black thing is important because I don't have the clip. AOC pretended to be black at her. Whenever AOC gets in front of her, she tries to do the Southern preacher thing. Every Democrat politician since MLK tries to do the MLK Southern black preacher cadence. And I wish I had this clip, but there's a clip of Ralph Warnock doing his speech. And then Governor Walz's wife, Tim Walz's wife, it cuts to her.
Oh, no.
And she goes, "He's so good at this."
Oh, no.
Because he's actually doing it. Because he's actually, yeah.
No. Do you have that? We don't have
I don't have that on me right
now. God!
Yeah, I know.
Dude, when there's a white liberal moment, you've got to save that.
Yeah. I bring up her alcoholism. I should be.
Yes.
Also, because I don't have any clips from this either, but I think Kamala's main characteristics, I think she drinks out of fear. She's a coward. She has no talent, and she keeps being put in places where she doesn't belong. She doesn't have the skill for. And also the Biden administration has like set her up to fail several times. Like she's been the face of the border. She's been the face of the Ukraine war several times. So she knows that she's been the lamb to slaughter, and she's, yeah. And now she has so much pressure on her back. And I watch any unscripted moment of hers, which barely few exist, but even the scripted ones, you see her alcoholism, but when that isn't shown, you see abject terror. I think it's very sad, honestly. I feel sorry for her in a similar way that I felt sorry for Biden being dragged into the presidency through dementia. This is a person who probably, honestly, deep down in her soul doesn't want to be president. And there's some demon inside of her telling her that this is the right thing to do. So those vices of cowardice and alcoholism are to be juxtaposed with Trump's virtues of courage. We saw him get shot in the face and stand up and tell a crowd to fight. And he did Theo Vaughn's podcast of the year, I think, where he talks with Theo Vaughn about how he has never had a cigarette, how he has never had a single drink of alcohol, and how he's never had cocaine.
What?
Yep. Trump has been a teetotaler his entire life. Thanks to his brother. Yeah. Fred Trump, who had a serious problem with alcoholism, and he sort of took his older brother's life as a warning. It's a very sincere and human podcast. And Theo Von has been going through recovery, and so he talks about that. And so this is like the first time that anybody ever like connected with Trump on a human level, where you have like an interview like that, where it's not contentious or it's either super contentious or super, throwing praise onto him. This was just like somebody interviewing him, just trying to connect to him as a person. And
it's like if Trump were on Unregistered.
Yeah.
Honestly, like that's what I would try to do. I mean, not in the way that Theo does it, but like, yeah. But the objective is the same. It's to connect the personal to the political. And you're right. No one has done that with Trump because they've been so busy demonizing him or busy protecting him and defending him and or worshiping him that they've never humanized him. It's interesting. That's a very interesting take on Trump, that he has suffered in a sense from that everyone has elevated him or made him into this non-human entity, both his supporters and his detractors. And I'm curious. And by the way, I am currently writing a biographical section in the book on Trump's early years, because I was really curious about what made the guy tick, and no one ever talks about this. His relationship with his father, interesting, fraught. Dad was an authoritarian dictator type dad, and Trump talked about as a teenager how he would like go to Times Square. This was back in the 60s, 50s, early 60s, when Times Square was freaky and full of criminals, and he would go there to shop for switchblades and stuff like that, and that was a regular thing for him. But at the same time, and this I think all makes sense who Trump is, at the same time, when he was 13, he enrolled in a military academy in Hudson Valley, upstate New York. But it's not like a lot of stories where it's like, oh, I got thrown into a military academy and I hated it. No, he loved it. Trump loved his military academy. He loved being a cadet. And that is precisely where he learned his reverence of the military. And that explains why H.R. McMaster and what's his face, the other Marine general who ran foreign policy for a couple of years, I forget, and all those guys, all those sort of military, those Marine generals he brought in as his foreign policy staff in the first few, that explains it. He has a really deep thing for the military, which I think is catastrophic, but I understand it given his history. Anyway, so yeah, do you have a clip?
I don't have a clip from Theo Von's podcast, but I just want to give that a shout out.
Yeah, I think we would do well to spend more time understanding Trump psychologically. Everybody.
Actually objectively look at what he's done. Like this is a big one. Like Oprah Winfrey is speaking. She spoke at the DNC, but like she was close friends with Trump for a long time. He was considered, and they talked warmly about this at the time of being his VP when he first ran in 2000. So also, I wish I had clips of this too, but when he was on like The View, he was received warmly in 2015. When he was on Wendy Williams, he chatted with her and like gave relationship advice as if he were like a black gay man or a black woman, like, and won the crowd over very well. Like,
it's interesting. Again, that's another really interesting angle on Trump derangement syndrome, like why certain liberals hate him so much. And I think for elite, especially New York-based liberals, I think it is also, and this is now that you're saying this is like occurring to me, I think it's also betrayal. They feel betrayed by him because so The View women and a lot of the sort of New York elite, and I lived in New York all through sort of like Trump's heyday, the 90s, 2000s. So I sort of saw this happening. I didn't really care much at the time, but I noticed it. He would give like amazing parties. He would he would buy nightclubs and then have all the celebrities come to them and hang out with it. He's very generous with those people. He was very, very generous. He was the host. He was the host for a lot of them. And that's why there's so many pictures of big shot celebrities hugging him, because they're at his party in New York in the 80s or 90s. And I think that, and also on top of that, then he becomes a TV star. And TV stars have to sort of be collegial among each other. There's sort of an enforced thing among the PR teams to make them say nice things about each other. But it's also real in that they're actual colleagues now. So like the women on The View, when he was doing his TV shows, were also doing TV shows. It's a pretty small world. They kind of know each other and they depend on each other, and the industry depends on them, and they know that. And so they have to be cooperative and collegial. And so that whole world, the New York celebrity world, Martha Stewart, Oprah Winfrey, on and on and on, Joy Behar, on and on and on, in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, liked Trump because he was a nice guy who threw awesome parties, and he was also like had a big, huge TV show that was successful, and you got to be nice to them. So, and then all of a sudden, he's saying things that you're not supposed to say.
Yeah, they feel guilty that they led to his credibility. Like, they boosted his image as this real estate mogul.
There's guilt too, right?
Yeah.
That's right. Probably
Yeah.
right. Yeah. They were associated with him. And there's probably some guilt. The hatred of Trump in that particular quarter, not all of Trump, not all of TDS everywhere, but that quarter, the New York-based celebrities, that's a very particular subculture that's quite powerful, and that's, I think, explains a lot of it. Yeah. He was one of them. He was one of them.
Anytime a celebrity goes into Republican politics, this happens too. Like the same thing happened with Ben Carson. Like, like New York Times, everybody praised him as this genius black doctor, like because he was a black doctor who like did this innovative thing with neuroscience and neurosurgery and saved so many lives. He was like, you know, mainstream media loved him, and then turns out he doesn't like the Obama administration. Turns out he's religious. Turns out he's interested in Republican politics. Then he's an idiot. Then he's botched a bunch of surgeries. Then
I didn't really.
No, I don't. But like those hit pieces came out, you know.
Oh,
he's like isn't smart. That he has all this weird stuff from his childhood, and he, you know, they painted him as a bumbling idiot when he's really just a sweet old man.
He's pretty stupid.
Yeah,
he's pretty stupid. Ben Carson.
Yeah, I think he's.
What do you think?
I don't think he's cut out for politics, and I think
yeah,
but
that's fair.
Yeah,
but as a political thinker, he's bad. He's dumb. Come on. No, I mean, he's not evil, and I agree. He's sort of thrust into this, and he shouldn't be doing politics. But if you were going to have brain surgery, how would you feel about Ben being your guy?
Yeah, that's the guy I want operating on me.
Oh, you brain. Do?
Yeah.
That dumb motherfucker?
Dude. Again,
wait.
He was
you don't praised. Like, so, you know, like racists often do this thing where they're like, not only do I have black friends, but if I were to have brain surgery, I'd have a black surgeon do it, you know, to like, is that so? Okay.
There's a great clip from The Wire where like a little kid says, I want to grow up to be like that guy who does brain surgery.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. What else?
So the teetotaling thing, I think it ties into a point. Former chief of staff for Ye, Milo Yiannopoulos, was on Tim Pool.
God, this
and
is
he's re-emerging again. I just probably because he's back on Twitter, and he made a point that also ties in with I
just want to say, like, this is relevant to now because he's really talking about Islam, and I think he's probably riffing on Israel Gaza too from this.
Mhm.
But it's essentially really about, well, it's about a lot of things, but it's relevant in that it is very much about Islam and U.S. foreign policy. But this is an amazing thing. I have so much to say about this. Go ahead, play it.
Okay. Yeah.
And Adam said this, the Constitution is wholly unsuited to the government of any other population than a moral and religious people. Yep. What does that mean? It means that the extraordinary freedoms that Americans enjoy, the First and the Second Amendment, only work if everyone's Christian. That's literally what it means. Moral and religious people in that century meant Christian. And freedom of religion in this country was only really meant to stop wars between Protestants. It was only really meant to stop internecine fighting among different Christian denominations. So Ron Paul is exactly correct, because you can't let people say whatever they want and own whatever firearms they want without the restraining influence of a pervasive Christian morality. And that's what we're talking about when we talk about culture. And so when he says, it should be illegal, it should be unthinkable, that's only possible in a Christian country. And if you deliberately import people who are not Christian, who do not practice Christianity, who do not share in those values. When we say Western values, we're not talking about freedom, we're not talking about democracy, we're not talking about capitalism, we're talking about Christianity, Jesus Christ.
Correct.
Right? If you import people who do not practice that form of restraint, of pious, self-effacing, restrained Christianity, these countries don't work.
I think people.
Yeah. So he's making the argument for Christian nationalism that our freedoms are, that the Bill of Rights is based off of the assumption that we have a overriding Christian morality to make those freedoms possible within our society. And I think, the founders are pretty explicit about that.
Yeah. All right. So he's on to something extremely important that I discuss at length. In fact, it's the theme of the first chapter of A Renegade History of the United States. He is ultimately completely wrong about Islam in particular. He's 50% wrong about what the founders had in mind, but he's on the right track in a way. So the founding fathers, and he's right. I'm impressed that he knows this about the founders at all, because no one else does except for me and a couple of historians. The founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, Alexander Hamilton, all of them, John Adams, all of them to a man, every single goddamn one of them. And they said this extensively, especially Adams, but all of them did. They said, oh, if we're going to introduce republicanism or democracy, if we're going to give power to the people in America in 1776, the people who live in America in 1776, if we win this war, we're going to give them power, political power, state power, control of the government, the people who live in New York and Philadelphia and Boston. And they looked around, they saw a bunch of drunks and prostitutes and fornicators and all kinds of rabble, gambling and doing all kinds of shit in the streets of the cities across the American colonies and in the countryside too. The Scotch Irish, my ancestors, in the North Carolina Highlands back then, absolute savages, proud to say. The founding fathers said, and this was maybe the most important contribution to political theory in the modern era, and yet no one knows about it. What they said was, if we are going to give these drunken, fornicating, rabble-rousing, violent, gambling, dancing, whoring people the vote, we will descend into anarchy immediately and collapse as a civilization, and America will be over. So there's no point in having a revolution and a war of independence and all this shit. Because and it's true, and I document this, there's tons of evidence, people drank on average in America in 1776 a quart of alcohol, 80 proof alcohol per day. They drank it literally like water because there wasn't a lot of water available. So they drank booze instead. So people were quite literally drunk everywhere, all around you in Philadelphia, Boston, New York during the revolution. They said the founders saw this, and prostitution was rampant, and the laws were unenforced, and whores were completely flagrant in all the cities during this time. The founding fathers, every one of them said, we have to first, before we give these people the vote and allow them to run for office and be president, we have to educate them in virtue. They have to be made virtuous. They did not say made Christian. So Milo's wrong, a little wrong about that. And I would have noticed, I can't remember any of the founders ever saying they need to be Christianized, but they all said they needed to be made virtuous. Now, he's also right in defining virtue, in this case, as self-restraint, because that's what the founders were about. They kept saying, virtue is self-restraint, restraining yourself from sex and drinking and laziness. It's about discipline. He's right about that. We have to inculcate virtue, that kind of virtue, in the American citizenry before we can introduce democracy. And now that sort of makes sense, doesn't it? And so he's completely right about that. They did not say we should Christianize them. Mm-hmm. And then he goes on to say, basically, that Muslims, right? He's talking about Muslims, do not possess this quality of self-restraint. And so the founders would have been disgusted about allowing Muslims into this country. And he also then, of course, says that Muslims can't be democratic because they're not part of this culture of Christian self-restraint. He doesn't seem to be aware that asceticism, renouncing one's own desires and interests for a greater good, usually God, is not confined to Christianity, dumb fuck. In fact, I would argue, and you don't even have to listen to me, go look at them. Have you seen the women in Islamic countries? You think they're not repressed enough over there? I mean, how about alcohol? Can you drink in Iran and Saudi Arabia? No, you can't.
Yeah, there's one bar for foreign diplomats, and you have to like be monitored. Yeah.
How about drugs? They cut off your fucking hands if you deal, or shoot you in the head if you deal drugs in any of those countries. Go to Indonesia. Try to do some drugs in Indonesia, the biggest Muslim country on the earth. They will fucking hang you publicly. That's what they do to drug dealers in Islamic countries. So the idea, and the hijab for women, look at Gaza. Have you seen a woman in Gaza? Have you seen the face, or not the face? Have you seen the body of a woman in Gaza? No. Every single woman in Gaza, in Saudi Arabia, and elsewhere wear the goddamn hijab, covering everything. So why on earth, Milo, do you think that Thomas Jefferson and John Adams would have been bummed to have Muslims come into this country full of repression, in particular repression against the thing that they hated the most, which was sexuality?
Fans of Milo will remember that I believe he originated, or he definitely popularized the meme, Islam is right about women. So he has had good things to say about Islam in the past. He also enforced Sharia Tuesdays on his Telegram channel back when he was banned from Twitter. Sharia Tuesdays, where he would not allow women to speak, and if you spoke as a woman, you'd be banned. He also was on Timcast in opposition or in dialogue and debate with Tommy Robinson and another Zionist on there. So he made some good points about the Zionist project. He said we should have just given them Vermont, which is great point. The more I think about it, I think Vermont is the perfect territory for
Zionists.
For Zionists. I think it's pretty much perfect. Whenever I hear people like propose Madagascar or Florida or something, I'm like, no. And then he said Vermont. I'm like, that's That's perfect. Yeah.
Why? Because it's cold and the Jews will freeze to death? What's the...
No, because it's like it's New England, and it's like the most unremarkable part of New England. So we still get New Hampshire, and also Vermont already electorally is pretty liberal. And if there's a state that we could do without, I mean, I would like to nuke Boston and nuke California,
Yes.
but yeah.
Well, not yet. Boston for sure. Boston needed to go a long time ago. California is like on the verge of losing its legitimacy as an entity. Okay, so we're wrong.
Vermont is pleasant. Vermont is just pleasant, and so like it wouldn't be a bad thing to get. I think they'd be thrilled with Vermont, but also we don't.
First of all, why do they deserve anything? Number two, you're wrong. Vermont's much nicer than New Hampshire. It just is. Like it just is. There's good stuff in New Hampshire. That's where I learned to rock climb. But Vermont's gorgeous. I love Vermont. I used to spend a lot of time there when I lived on the East Coast. It's awesome. In the fall, God, a month from now, Vermont's going to be the most beautiful place on the planet. It is full of old, crunchy, lefty hippies who I kind of love, even though they're wrong about everything. But they're still like good people. Pacifists. It's kind of like the pacifist center of the United States. Again, I'm not a pacifist, but I love pacifists, and that's kind of where they are.
And if you're going to relocate a population, you might as well relocate a population of pacifists.
But have you noticed how Israelis are, though? Like, why do you want to give them the good stuff? I say like Upper Canada. If you ever look at a world map, it's amazing. Or a globe. Look at a globe. Go find a globe, everybody, and look at the top of the globe near the around the North Pole. Like Canada just goes up and up and up and up and up and up. It is so vast. I don't know what the total area is, but I think it's bigger than it's much bigger than the U.S. It's gigantic because they own all of that territory that's basically uninhabited in the Arctic Circle. It's huge. So there's a lot of space to send the Zionists.
How about Newfoundland?
Newfoundland. I mean, do other people live there? Because they don't get along well with strangers.
Yeah.
This is why I'm proposing the Arctic Circle, because as far as I know, the Inuit are gone from there. They don't really hang out there. So I think the Zionists will actually get along.
You proposed
with the icebergs and the polar bears.
You proposed like $1 million, I think, on Twitter, like something like a lump sum to relocate once the Zionist project eventually fails, and that the United States government owes them that.
Well, wait. That's for Israelis, right? Yeah. So the people who happen to be born there, who, of course, if you're born there, you have no culpability about anything. It's if you choose then to be a Zionist and advance the Zionist project ideologically, then yeah, I think you should probably live in the Arctic Circle.
Okay. So
I mean, honestly, it's a war-making ideology. Like it's like communism, in that it's guaranteed to create war, right? Like you must use physical violence to enact this ideology. Like it's right, like communism. You have to force people to work in the agricultural collectives and the collective factories, and you have to force people to do all kinds of stuff. And those who resist that, you got to put them in the gulags or shoot them. And we know this. But it also just makes sense, because they're going to have to shoot me. I know that. So, because I won't work. I've told communists to their face on their podcasts from Brooklyn. Every time I say, hey, comrade, listen, I know you're a nice guy and you make a great latte, but when you have a communist regime in my country, I won't work. What are you going to do? And they'd be like, hamana. I'm like, no, I won't work. What are you going to do? And they're like, hamana, oh, we won't. And I've had this debate with Ben Burgis, Michael Brooks before he died. Lots of communists on Twitter. You can look it up. Go look. I mean, on YouTube. And I say, because you're going to have to do something really bad to me, my friend, because these are friends of mine. I look at them, and I used to be you, by the way. I used to be a socialist, and then I realized to be a socialist, you have to do violence, because there will be people who will refuse to be socialist. And you can't allow that. You can't allow people to not cooperate. Same with Zionism. It requires violence so long as the Palestinians refuse to leave, which they have refused to leave, like en masse. What are you going to do? You can't. You have to do violence against those people who are in the way of Jews establishing a Jewish state on that land where those Palestinians are. They have to go for there to be a Jewish state. And if they refuse to go, you got to hurt them. And that's exactly what all the Zionists said. Herzl, Jabotinsky, Ben-Gurion, when they were founding the thing, they said, we're going to have to kill these people. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. So let's not support this. Let's not do this. Maybe let's instead move to Brooklyn. So anyway, that's it's an inherently violent project, and I don't understand why that's even controversial to say. So anyway,
on the point of virtue,
yes,
what do you think about Milo as an ex-gay, somebody who is advertising his identity as
an ex-gay?
Yes,
we just saw the clip. Did you not see the hair and the sunglasses and the what? That's not a gay man.
He is.
Do you know a lot of straight guys who look like that?
I love his look because it looks like a gay man dressing as a straight man, or like it's straight drag. It's the most hilarious thing ever.
Yeah, when I go to the sports bar on Sunday, like all the guys look just like that. It's a super straight look.
Aviators and a mullet means you're straight. That's just a fact.
Yeah, sure.
And he also drinks domestic beer and plays football.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, he's super. Yeah.
But
he must love fucking women. It must be just awesome for him. He must just.
Sorry. I'm not sure if he's taken to that quite yet, but he has.
That's a little too far.
Yeah.
He's not that straight.
I think he's still. He also believes that chastity is a virtue to be extolled.
There are actually people, though, like on the right, who think he's done this. They really believe him, and they're like, they look at him say things like that, like Hanania, that idiot who was on my show. I regret it. Richard Hanania. I don't even understand who he is, but he said this thing. He's like, oh, it's clear from what Milo says here that he's no longer gay. Was he tongue in cheek?
He might have been sarcastic in that.
I mean, Hanani is autistic, so I don't know if he is capable of sarcasm, but maybe. Yeah, okay. Maybe.
But what I'm saying is Milo is presenting himself and saying, I chose to be straight. I chose to stop being gay. Donald Trump saying, I chose to never touch alcohol, cigarettes, or drugs. I might even be genetically predispositioned to be addictive in personality, but I chose not to touch it. That's sort of a Christian worldview that believes in free will, that believes in sin, and it's sort of in odds with the materialist leftist worldview that people are born gay and cannot escape that, or that people are born predisposed to be addicted to something, and that we should look upon addicts with compassion because it's not their choice. They're just, falling into their circumstance. These people are promoting a worldview where people choose to take better actions in life. I think that's the big philosophical divide is the right agency
is about agency.
Yes. So the right is presenting a worldview where you can aspire to be better, and the left is providing a worldview where you can aspire to have the government take care of you in your current state.
Right.
That you will never escape from.
Because an addiction is like an act of nature. It has nothing to do with you. It's outside of your control. You have no agency in this.
Yeah.
It just hits you.
The best thing we can do is offer a needle exchange so you don't get sick.
Yeah. You just wake up one morning and next thing you know, you're like, and shooting heroin. So I clearly reject the Democrat view of such things. Are the Republicans really pro-agency though?
I think so. I think the justice system, maybe not granting people agency to make the wrong choice, but definitely in seeing people as people who have agency. At least the Christian right does. I don't see how you are a Christian that doesn't believe in free will. Unless you're a Calvinist, but
That's
even
interesting.
then you still have free will to act.
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah. All right. Well, I was thinking about something about how the sort of Republican right denies agency on certain things, but I guess you're right. Okay. No, that's right. I mean, yeah. I mean, well, that goes with the collectivism of the left. So collectivism. What collectivism does, one of the things it does is it robs agency. Individual agency is the devil in any collectivist politics. That's the problem, is individual agency that must be overcome by any collectivist politics, whether it is Christian nationalist or it is communist. They have to deal with people wanting to do stuff on their own. And they have to deal with people thinking freely and independently. That's a problem. So, I mean, I guess that's where I'm at with the agency thing and the right wing. You're right on that score, I guess. I got to think more about that. That's a really interesting point that just makes me think more about it. But no, they're not perfect on this either. The left is terrible. The left is the worst, no doubt about it. I mean, Rousseau lays out the map in the social contract, the social contract. No, Jesus Christ, what's the book called? Anyway, Rousseau lays it out very clearly that this is going to be a massive collectivized society, and the left has followed him ever since. Marx and then all the other leftists have been basically Rousseauians, and he's still. I can't wait to teach that at the academy. By the way, the Rousseau section. It's the foundation of the left, intellectually, internationally, is Rousseau in the 18th century. Every left-wing movement since then has followed him. And he says very, very clearly, ain't no agency. There's one big blob called society, the state, and there will be one leader of it, and you don't get to decide shit. There's a general will that determines what we are going to do collectively. Your individual thoughts are absolutely irrelevant to this. And that's where the left has gone ever since. Every major, significant leftist intellectual movement and political movement has proceeded from that individual agency is the problem. That's the problem to overcome. It's that you, Michael Weimer, think differently than the collective. What are we going to do with Michael Weimer? Are we going to put him in the prison? Are we going to shoot him? Are we going to enslave him? Are we going to re-educate him? Right? These are the things that leftist regimes have actually done to deal with people like you and me. The refuseniks. It is a fly in the ointment. It is sand in the gears. Communism can't handle people like us. The whole thing falls apart if you have a significant number of people who simply won't work, cooperate, serve in the army, salute their superiors, all the things that communism requires.
Well, it works. You just have to kill all those people.
Yeah, I mean, right. If you manage to somehow create a population that is all down with this program, and in China, I would say in pockets of China, that's kind of true because the culture, as far as I know, Chinese culture is just a far more collectivist culture, of course. And I think there were parts of the Chinese society in the 50s and 60s that actually were pretty much united on this stuff. And so that's why Maoism took a particularly nasty form of collectivism, because it had a very, fertile ground in China at that time. So I don't know. The right wing in the United States has always been Christian, still is, Well, what is Christianity? It's a collectivist religion. Clearly. And I don't understand why libertarians are Christian. I've never understood that or how they reconcile that. It's clearly a collectivist religion. Now, you don't have to, that's not necessarily bad or good. To me, it's bad because I'm an anti-collectivist, but isn't it? Like, don't you read how is Christianity the religion of the right? It's the socialist religion. I've said this since I read the Bible when I was 19 years old. I said, Jesus is a socialist. What? Why is the right wing Christian? Why is that their thing? Honestly, I don't get it.
Again, I don't think Jesus himself is a socialist.
Yeah, he was.
I think socialism is a secular reading of Christian values where you take your role as a human being out of it and you make yourself God and you say,
what is individualistic about the Bible?
It's all about an individual struggle against, like, Jesus was murdered by the state. It's all about him being completely isolated against the collective. So
the leader.
Mhm.
What are you talking about? It's a cult of personality.
Yeah, but that's how you're supposed to behave, is you're supposed to follow the example of somebody who went against the collective.
Oh. But then they created a counter collective.
Yeah, so which is sort of how it like keeps splintering off into Protestantism, and it splinters off into socialist interpretations of its morality, but also how it reforms itself is that it keeps doing that.
People are unaware that in the 19th century and well into the 20th century, and this is still the case to some extent, but in the 19th century in the United States, I think in England too, I think almost all of the socialists, damn near all of the socialists, and socialism was a big deal in the US in the 19th century and early 20th century. They were all Christian, and like they all justified their socialism through Christianity. Eugene Debs is only the biggest example. The head of the Socialist Party, ran for president 4 times, famous socialist, super Christian. And if you read Debs's speeches, they're all about socialism fulfilling the mission of Jesus Christ. And again, when I read Jesus Christ, when I was in college, when I read the Bible, the New Testament, I was shocked because I was a socialist at the time. I said, oh my God, this is my guy. This is my thing. Christian socialists were a huge thing for a long time. They're still around, a huge thing. And in fact, the socialist movement was largely Christian until the Marxists took over in the 1920s. But so again, I don't get it. It's a collectivist. All the major religions are collectivist by definition. What are we doing here, guys? Nobody who is an anti-collectivist should be fucking with any of the monotheist religions. Islam, Judaism, and especially Christianity. Christianity, guys, is the basis of imperialism. It's the basis of humanitarian intervention. We have the duty to go uplift the savages and make them holier, in that country over there. And we just need the military to do that. It's the basis for all the stuff that it's the basis for welfare, the welfare state. Oh my God, there's poor people over there. We got to uplift them too. Give them welfare. That is all for 100+ years been justified through Christian logic. Barack Obama, we should be our brother's keeper. Where did he get that from? And he said that to justify welfare and foreign interventions. How on earth is the right-wing Christian? What I'm saying here tonight in front of America is that the Republican Party should embrace Islam.
I was saying before the show that that Islam is basically Christian plus Nietzsche's critiques of it. It basically integrated all of those. That you should crush your enemies and that you should have your will to power. And so, everybody's on the online trying to like figure out how to synthesize it too, and Islam kind of already did it. Yeah.
Everybody needs to take our course on the Quran at the academy. I'm serious. Everybody, it's people talk mad shit about Islam without having ever read the thing. You will like it. I promise you. And especially, and I mean, I'm talking to the audience directly. You listening to this, watching this, if you take our Bible course too, I promise this, you will prefer Islam to Christianity and Judaism clearly. Like, there's no question. I promise that. If you take those courses, you will see this. You get to fight against your enemies, you get to vanquish and kill your enemies. What's bad about that? Like, real enemies, people who invade your country and kill your family and raise your villages and rape your women. That's what that book is about, the Quran. That's what they're saying. They also embrace sensual pleasure, which Christianity and Judaism reject entirely, militantly, and violently. So there's an asceticism in Islam for sure, but it's a much softer asceticism. It's much harder against external enemies. Is that not the world you want to live in, where the home is cool and nice and fun, but you fucking kill people who come in and try to wreck your shit? Yes. Trust me. Islam is... Now, again, this is only if you held a gun to my head and said you must choose one of the three. I would never be a Muslim. Fuck that. But if I had to choose one of the three, it's clearly the best. And so if you are a conservative ascetic, which they basically all claim to be, I'm for the family and I hate alcohol and porn and yada, yada. Tell me which of the three religions is best for you? Which is the most ascetic in those ways? They kill people for selling alcohol. They cover their women from head to toe so you can't see them at all. So there's no sexual energy at all. This is where Christian evangelical political people should be. They should be Muslim. I'm super serious. Like, if they're concerned about sex and debauchery and trans stuff and gay stuff, how are the Muslims on gays? Why are we living in Alabama when we could be living in Riyadh? Honest to God, like, you should go there because that's your people. And Milo sort of understood that. There have been a few conservatives who have gotten that, by the way. Oh, and you know who the conservative who's gotten this?
You're talking about Andrew Tate?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But who is the smart conservative who's gotten this?
Owen Benjamin?
No, like the super smart, like
The
really,
super
really what's it called? Galaxy brain smart.
Galaxy brain. Who up top is saying this?
Been on my show. He's not from America. Has a beard. Dugan. I mean, Dugan.
Yeah, that's more of an alliance, though. That's more of just like a... I mean, yeah, like Dugan himself is an Orthodox Christian.
Yeah.
But he's just saying that we in the Christian world have more in common with the Muslim world than we do with the secular world or with Israel.
Yeah, he's saying what I'm saying. He's saying that Islam is like us.
Mm-hmm.
It's they love the family and they hate sex and they hate drugs and drinking and they love tradition and damn.
Yeah.
Those are our peoples. Why are you messing? So Dugan is all in with the Palestinians for that reason.
And opposes Western banking now because, like, Eastern banking and Muslim banking has laws against usury. You can't have these insane interest rates, which used to be a crime in the United States, used to be a crime in medieval Europe when we were more Christian, that you couldn't have insane interest rates on your credit cards or anything like that. But anti-usury.
Yeah. So like Dugan and I, and that interview, that's certainly one of the high points of Unregistered. And I strongly encourage everyone to go watch that interview. It's an incredible moment. He and I, we end up on the same side of these political issues, but for completely different reasons. And I told him this at the beginning of the interview. I'm a secular hedonist, bro. And you're like an Orthodox Christian over there. But we agree on all this stuff. Why? For him, it's that the West represents debauchery. Not wrong, and the traditional world, he sees the enemies of the West, like the military enemies of the West, as the upholders of traditional society. And yeah, if you look at Russia, the states, at least the states, Russia, Iran, Palestine, yeah, pretty traditional, aren't they? So I don't oppose the U.S. empire for those reasons. I oppose it for all the reasons I've elaborated, on the show, the cost, the death, the blowback, etc. But, and that's why I had him on the show. It's an amazing thing. And this is why the left and the right can get together, especially on issues of war. And this has been my political career for 20 years now. Like, I've been trying to get the left and the right together on that issue. War. Glenn Greenwald is the guy who has done the best job of that. And his audience, I think, is about roughly 50% left and right, and they get it. And the gray zone to some extent too. And, but that's, so I'm just, please, if you liked, and then the whole America First thing, and Trump's, he gave that speech at the Israel lobby thing. What was that? It was some like Zionist organization.
Oh yeah, well, it was some donor thing. It was from Miriam Adelson. She brought him up. Yeah, it was some donor thing that she was doing. Yeah,
and he goes on and on. I mean, I haven't finished watching that speech, but it's just atrocious. This is Trump at his worst. He says AIPAC should be stronger. The Israel lobby should be stronger.
They used to have more power.
Really? Before they controlled the police departments in America, you mean? And the line from JD Vance and Trump, like their policy line is that the war needs to end sooner, which is okay, sure, but that means sending more weapons to Israel, to them. That's what they're saying, or suggesting at least. So we need to send more weapons to kill more people more quickly to get it over with. But supporting Israel is an America First policy. I need all the America First people, and Trump in particular, to stand before a jury and a prosecutor and answer questions about this. This is insane. This is absurd. This is ridiculous. How is America First, that movement, embracing sending trillions of dollars to a foreign country? I mean, is this not like, to me, it's almost enough to sort of call into question the entire movement and all of Trump, like the whole thing. Because and where does it come from? I still don't know why Trump cares like this, except for Jared, his son-in-law, whose family used to host Benjamin Netanyahu when he visited the United States. Like, Netanyahu would stay in their house and sleep in Jared's bed, apparently.
I think
but like, why does he care?
I think Trump has always had a soft spot for minorities, which any leftist will hear and laugh at. But like,
that's funny. Yeah.
He has a soft spot for Black people, very obvious. He got an award from the NAACP. He loves talking to Tim Scott, even though Tim Scott isn't particularly talented. He loves his picture with Muhammad Ali and Rosa Parks at the NAACP thing. He loved on Wendy Williams. I think growing up in New York, he's been around a lot of Jews. His family married into them. He's always been in with that, and then it makes sense that the Republicans are that, so he falls in with the establishment on that. But what they need to do is they need to read Where the Right Went Wrong by Pat Buchanan. It's a book he wrote in 2004, hailing against the Bush administration, talking about how the Iraq War was a disaster. And he details how the clean break memo, he talks about that. He talks about how George Bush was untalented and did not know much about foreign policy. And all these neocons in the establishment started salivating and going, great, we can put whatever we want onto this guy. And he lays out the entire neocon plan for wars. And he's writing this in 2004. And he's like, Egypt is next, Libya is next, Syria is next. And he gives a history of Islam, like literally starting from Muhammad to present day. And he's like, this is a conflict between European Christians and the Middle East. The United States has nothing to do with this. He, in a chapter called Is Islam the Enemy? Where he basically says, maybe of Christian in Europe, but definitely not the United States. But this is what I want to ask you about, because we have a course on the neocons. He traces the neocons to, I mean, he has your origins as well, but I think he also traces them to George McGovern. When the Democrats had George McGovern against Nixon, George McGovern, hippie, anti-war, get us out of Vietnam.
Right. Yeah,
that's right. A huge radical break from Kennedy, LBJ, and the Democrats being the war party.
Yep.
So he says that's the moment that all the warmongers in the Democratic Party switched over to becoming Republicans. And
yeah, he's right. So 1972, that election, George McGovern, is when Bill Kristol, who was an undergraduate student at Harvard at the time, volunteered to campaign for Scoop Jackson, Henry Jackson from the state of Washington, who was a senator who was running in the primary for president. And he was the only Democrat at the time running for president in the primary who was pro-war, pro-NATO. This was the time of the Cold War, of course. So like wanted massive military buildup, wanted the U.S. bases all over the world. The most aggressive American imperialist at the time, Democrat, liberal, Scoop Jackson from Seattle, voted consistently to send lots and lots of money to Boeing. But he also voted consistently for civil rights, lots of environmental stuff. The dude was like the original environmentalist senator. Abortion rights, women's rights. I think he even voted for the ERA, the Equal Rights Amendment. This was the time of feminism. Labor unions loved him. Super liberal lefty. Bernie Sanders, completely on domestic issues. On foreign policy, dude was a killer. And Paul Wolfowitz ended up working for him as well. A lot of the neocons who took over the country in 2003 and 4 all started in the Scoop Jackson campaign of 1972 because they were standing up against McGovern and the peaceniks in the party. Remember, the neocons all started out as leftists, not even liberals. They were like socialists. They wanted to stand up against McGovern. They wanted a left-wing party that was hawkish on foreign policy, not just hawkish, but truly imperialist. They wanted an American century, an American world in which the United States dominated the world. Unabashed about that. Kristol still talks about it. They want more military bases. They want 500 is not enough. And Scoop Jackson called for that. The neocons cohered around that campaign and that guy and that politics in 1972 against McGovern. Although McGovern, the thing about McGovern, though, people think of him as like a pacifist or an anti-war guy. He wasn't. He was like Obama was with Iraq, which is that Obama, what was Obama's argument about Iraq? Was it that the United States should never enter into preemptive regime change wars across the world? No, it was that this is a stupid war. Stupid was the word he used. It's the wrong war to advance American interests. We have better wars in mind, like the war in Syria and the war in that he led. in Yemen. Those are the ones that are important. McGovern was similar. He was a World War II veteran. He thought that was an awesome war. He wished they had killed more Germans. He wanted, and he said this consistently. This is, again, I am like the only person I've ever been aware of who has even said this about McGovern. And I got fired basically from Salon.com 20 years ago by a friend of mine who was the editor there for saying this. They wanted me to write for them, and then I started to write stuff about George McGovern being not a peacenik, and they were like, "What are you talking about?" Of course he was. Go listen to George McGovern, the greatest peacenik anti-war candidate ever for
Of the Democrats, at least.
Yeah. And dude was all about the Cold War and the American Empire and the American century and Pax Americana and bases everywhere and the US being dominant and us uplifting all the savages in the third world and all the rest of it. Yeah. He was just like Kennedy, just, talked a good game, but was also completely about running the world. So yeah, that's that.
We got 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk abortion?
Clip.
Or do you want to talk Biden and what he said about Europe?
That one.
Yeah. Okay.
Lots of yelling coming up. This is going to be good. I'm working on my Biden impersonation, by the way. It's pretty amazing. Let's do it.
But this is an actual cogent point, even though we vehemently disagree with it.
Yeah, sure.
This is like what he's considering his crowning achievement of his presidency.
Yeah.
We united Europe like it had been united for years, adding Finland and Sweden to NATO. 10 days before he died, Henry Kissinger called and said, not since Napoleon has Europe not looked over their shoulder at Russia with dread until now. Until now. Well, guess what? Putin thought he'd take Kyiv in 3 days. 3 years later, Ukraine is still free.
Wow. So first of all, Russia has conquered and held 20% of Ukraine for 3 years. The entire eastern and southern portions of Ukraine are now Russian territory and have been since the invasion in 2022. So, okay. Something like half of Ukrainian men have fled the country and live elsewhere to avoid the draft. The remaining men in Ukraine are fighting against the draft, and their moms are punching out Ukrainian military recruiters in the streets to save their children, their sons and their husbands. Ukraine's economy, of course, is completely shattered. It's basically non-existent, completely propped up by the United States foreign aid and European foreign aid. Zelensky's government they're literally killing each other. His top aide was assassinated a year ago. Budanov, the security chief, is clearly angling for the top spot. Zelensky is now trying to throw him under the bus. Free. Okay. Country at war that is controlled entirely by other nation states, that is being used as a proxy in this war, in which half the population is fleeing because it is so bad and doesn't want to participate in any of this. That's a free country. Okay, cool. But yeah, he's passionate. He's just so. It is remarkable, though, that Democrats. I was watching the crowd, like that woman, that sort of chubby woman from I forget which state, pumping her.
Does not narrow it down at all.
You're right, pumping her fist about Ukraine. I'm like, do you really? Glenda from Indiana, do you really know anything about this? Why are you feeling Ukraine? Is because you were told 3 years ago now that Putin was like Trump, that Trump liked Putin, and that Putin invaded this country and killed all these people. And that's all you know. That's all you'll ever know. And that's all you need to know, because you'll vote for Kamala because of it. So yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Oh. Yeah, so he literally destroyed Europe. And he's dragging America into it, and he's proud of it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I think another Pat Buchanan book everybody should read. Dave Smith talks about this all the time. Also, shout out to Dave Smith. Like, he's crushing
holding
it.
it down, man. He's holding it down for so many of us. God. He's taken debate after debate after debate and just slaying fools like right and left. Everyone should. What was the latest one I saw? He just destroyed this fool who was arguing for Israel. What was that? It was just like this week, I think. Dave just crushed some. Oh, Mark Pellegrino. It was like an internal libertarian debate. I guess Pellegrino is like an actor, but he's also a Randian, Ayn Rand, and all the Randians are super pro-Israel Zionists. Dave, I mean, it's just, everyone should just go watch that debate, and you'll like be an anti-Zionist by the end of it. I guarantee you. I mean, it's just a beatdown, and Dave does this every week, and he's done it over and over again on huge platforms too. Yeah, he's awesome.
He also like treads the line of like, I will show up to Candace Owens' show. I will have Nick Fuentes on. I will show up on Tucker Carlson. I'll also go on the Young Turks. I'll also go on CNN. I'll also go on Fox Business. Yeah. Like, I will appear anywhere and talk to anyone and be an adult who only speaks for myself. And he just has his lane perfectly carved out. Like, I think that's the future of media. Everybody should be following that example of just standing for yourself and being willing to talk to anybody.
Tremendous integrity.
Yeah.
Not just fidelity to his principles, but his consistency, his seriousness about the issues, and his rigorous study of the issues. I mean, he knows a lot, and he's researched it a lot. He's learned a lot. Yeah, thank God that Dave is big and getting bigger, and thank God for Joe Rogan promoting him so much. He's got a huge audience now, and they are hearing the right things about foreign policy. That's for sure. Yeah, there's nothing Dave says that I disagree with. I mean, I would add things to what he says, but he's completely, I mean, he's right about all of it. And it's especially helpful that he's a Brooklyn Jew saying this stuff, right? Yeah, shout out to Dave. Pat Buchanan.
Yeah. Churchill, Hitler, and the Unnecessary War.
Yes. Okay. So, it's not a great book.
Oh, really?
It's an extremely important argument that I would say he introduces a huge argument, a massive argument, a super important argument, but he doesn't develop it well enough. And that is one of the major reasons why I'm writing this book now, is that in about 5 chapters in my book, what I do is I elaborate and develop that argument that it was an unnecessary war. We're talking about World War II, the war against the Nazis in particular, unnecessary, never had to happen. In fact, the Allies basically created all of it.
Well, he fixates on Churchill. So, like, you should read that book if you're interested in Churchill. And he basically places the blame solidly on Churchill.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, he does a great job on Churchill, who deserves most of the blame, even more than Roosevelt in some ways, as the chief instigator of the murders of tens of millions of people in Europe and elsewhere. Unnecessary murders. Again, unnecessary. The entire war did not need to happen. The World War did not need to happen.
And he's lamenting the fall of the British Empire. So, like, if you're an American, you probably don't care about that.
Yep.
Pat is he makes the argument about World War I, basically, that like the same lies that were told about Hitler were told about the Kaiser. And that he was this, despot who wanted to take over all of Europe. But like, if the Kaiser were to win World War I, like you don't get Lenin, you don't get Stalin, you don't get Hitler.
Yep.
And it would just been a inter-European conflict that would have never expanded out to the whole world.
It would have been a regional war that no one would have ever cared about outside of Europe. Americans wouldn't even know about it if the U.S. had not become involved.
Yeah.
And what Churchill did was he almost forced the U.S. to become involved, but also Roosevelt wanted to get in there.
Mm-hmm.
But if that hadn't happened, we would almost never talk about that war. It would be so insignificant in world history, and many fewer people would have died. I mean, fractions would have died.
Yeah. So Biden choosing to warmonger against Putin the way he has. I just wanted to mention briefly, since we're out of time, the New York Times article about Biden preparing for nuclear war against Russia, China, and North Korea. So basically the connection I'm making is our foreign policy has forced Russia and China to become allies, and now we're forced to prepare for a nuclear conflict with them. And the Ukraine war and the war in Israel, but more so the Ukraine war, is basically forcing World War III, forcing an international conflict. And it's, and he's proud of it.
Yeah. I mean, well, yeah. Biden's been ready to push the button for a long time. The worry is that he's so demented that he might push it in the next 6 months, not even knowing what he's doing. And that's a real concern. If you're not capable of running a campaign for president, why are you capable of being president? And yet he will be president until January. That's a long time to kill people.
And I think this is the biggest political scandal possibly in American history, that you have a president that is senile, that has been covered up for 4 years, and is currently being covered up to keep him in office and to keep internal Democratic politics happy for the campaign.
Amen.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I do feel joyful and happy now. So who cares, man?
Yeah.
Thank you for your cynicism, bro. God, we're having a party in Chicago and you're just like such a downer. Is that because you're racist? Because of your haircut? Is that what's going on?
Yeah.
No one, let me tell you something. No young people in the Democratic Convention have your haircut right now. All these boys your age, they all have long hair. It drives me nuts.
They have like the curly, they have like a curly lesbian cut. That's like the young Democrat look.
What's this thing? Every guy under 30 has this fucking stupid long hair now, and I don't like it. Everyone, look at Michael. Look how sexy this motherfucker is right here. That's the look, bro. Do that, everybody. The Aryan circa 1937 look is totally dope.
Yeah,
chicks dig it. They like dominance. Chicks like dominance. Okay, so fascism is good. We got to go.
Yeah.
Well, how many things did we? So glad YouTube is no longer demonetizing us, because we would be dead.
We're still demonetized and probably ghettoized.
Oh, forever. Right. Sorry. Yeah. Right. We're never making money. All right, man, we got to go. So if you want to hang out with us, freaks and weirdos, on a very fun Zoom meeting after this show every Thursday, go to patreon.com/unregistered. $5 a month. You get to hang out with us at Unregistered Live every Thursday night immediately after Unreported. That's where we're going right now. And I say even crazier stuff because it's all private. It's unrecorded. It's the dungeon. No, it's fun. So join us. Patreon.com/unregistered. Become a patron of the show. But you know what? Even if you don't want to come to the Unregistered Live, don't you want to support us for $5 a month? Because you love this show. You can't wait to hear what we have to say. And you want to keep it going. Also, we've never said this once. I'll say it now. Like and support us. Click subscribe. Write a comment, even if it's a negative one. We get hardly any of those, but whatever. Do that. Help us out. We're growing. We want to get bigger. We know we're the best show on the internet, and you do too. So let's make that happen. Peace.
Sweet. Yeah, peace. I'm going to play us out with how Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden talking about abortion in 2008.
Perfect.
Yeah. Cool.
Bye, man.
See ya.
I think abortion should remain legal, but it needs to be safe and rare. And I have spent many years now as a private citizen, as First Lady, and now as Senator, trying to make it rare, trying to create the conditions where women had other choices. I have supported adoption, foster care. I helped to create the campaign against teenage pregnancy, which fulfilled our original goal 10 years ago of reducing teenage pregnancies by about a third. And I think we have to do even more. You know, when I think about this issue, I think about the whole range of concerns and challenges associated with it, and I will continue to do what I can to reduce the number and to improve and increase the care for women, and particularly the adoption system and the other opportunities that women would have to make different choices.
I do not view abortion as a choice and a right. I think it's always a tragedy, and I think that it should be rare and safe. And I think we should be focusing on how to